Thank you guys so much for joining us today for the free webinar. And we're going to talk all about commercials. So we're going to watch some commercials. We're going to talk about what the trends are and how then we as voice talent can be able to use that to help better our auditions and make us even more competitive. Okay. So my name is Heidi Rue and my husband is Mike Stout, and we own Atlanta Voiceover Studio and ProVoiceoverTraining.com. And we're also voice talent and have been for a long time. And I'll kind of share a little bit more about that. But today, what we are going to cover is we're actually only going to very skim the surface on how COVID affected advertising. Because to be honest with you, you guys, now we want to focus on what's going on the rest of the year. And so I want to get to that more than just focus on COVID. And then also, what can we expect the rest of the year? And then as voice talent, what does this mean for our auditions and going forward? If you have no idea who I am, then let me just share a little bit of background. I have a background in radio, and then I hosted a TV show for a while, did some on-camera stuff for a while. I was in radio part-time for a couple of the years, but almost a decade, and really had my sights kind of set on radio. That's what I really wanted to do. And I had done some voiceover, for the TV station that I hosted and did a show for, and then also for the radio station. If any of you guys are in radio, then you know what I'm talking about. They grab you into the studio and are like, hey, can you voice this commercial really quick? So I had done a little bit of that, but I never thought of it as a career. And what led me to a career was this handsome guy right here in the lay there. His name is Mike, and he was on the same radio station as I was. And he said, hey, Heidi, do you do voiceover? Because I could listen to your voice all day. And I was like, what? That's a really smooth line, but I don't do voiceover. And I didn't really think that was I don't know. I just never thought it was a thing. And so he introduced me to his agent, and I was able to get on with Richard Hutchison Management in Atlanta. And I started kind of doing it part-time on the side. And then if anyone has been in radio, you know that you really can't say that you're a professional radio person unless you've gotten fired. So I didn't get fired, but there were a lot of changes, and I ended up quitting and to do voiceover full-time. And then a year after that, Mike got fired, which was one of the greatest things in the world to happen. And so we built a home studio and we were working from there, and everything was fine. And then, of course, Heidi, the wife, she messed it all up, because I said to Mike, I'm like, Mike, I miss seeing people, or here at the house working. And I just really miss seeing people. And a friend of ours had opened up this big soundstage studio and said they had a bunch of offices. So Mike was like, you know what, Heidi, we have so many of our actor on-camera friends that don't have a good home studio. So why don't we create a studio in this little office space? And then that way our actor friends can come to record. And that way they don't miss out if voiceover auditions come through. Now, this was over 5 years ago. The idea started like 6 years ago. So I said, okay, great. So we started that. And these are pictures in our second space, which was about 400 square feet. The first space was about 100 square foot space. And we opened it, Atlanta Voiceover Studio. And then we started getting people asking, oh, do you do demos? Do you do workshops? Do you do classes? And we're like, no, we don't. But we realized there was a huge need in Atlanta, and we just could not keep going without trying to offer something. So I won't go into the whole thing, but now we are in a 3,200 square foot space, and it's been wonderful. And not only do we have Atlanta Voiceover Studio, which offers training, and then we also have a full-time engineer on staff. We do a bunch of different shows too that are here in Atlanta and do VO for that. And then we also started ProVoiceoverTraining.com. And even though all of our classes offer the virtual option live, we wanted to offer something where it was more on demand. So the videos were already there, and that way you could watch it really on your own time. If you only had, Saturday mornings to be able to learn VO, we wanted to be able to provide that. And so ProVoiceoverTraining.com does that and offers on-demand training. We also do demos. The only reason why I'd even shared this at the beginning is to say that we have written tons of demos, and I write the scripts for them generally. And so that is something that I do. I am always in commercials and advertising, and it is like on my top priority to stay up to date with what's going on and why. But anyways, you can listen to some of our demos if you want on our website, AtlantaVoiceOverStudio.com. Okay, so why do we even need to care? First of all, when I was doing, it was probably a couple years maybe into VO after I left radio, and I had been booking really well. And then all of a sudden, 2 years in, I just was not booking as much. And I thought, what is going on? What do I need? What's going on? And that was when I became obsessed with just watching commercials and paying attention to them. And just doing that alone, I didn't even have a coach, but just doing that alone, after a couple months of doing that, immediately started booking again. And so it is so important to be able to know what's going on. One, it lets us know how our voice specifically, how Jeanette's voice fits in, how Roberta's voice fits in to what is mainly out there. Now, also something else I'm going to say is that a lot of this has to do with national commercial spots. Okay. So regional and local spots are a little different. Some of the regional may kind of be a little similar. And of course, the local, you just almost want to think like a few years behind from the national trends. But then also it gives us a why for the booking patterns. Now, one of the reasons why I wanted to cover COVID and how things changed with the advertising is because last year during COVID, to be honest with you, when those auditions started coming in, I thought, this is me. This is my time. I have a voice that that's part of my branding is that I lead with my heart. And I believe that your words deserve that. So I thought, yes, this is my time to just share the heart. And I want to empathize and, all this stuff. And I didn't book. And I thought, why am I not booking? Why am I not booking? And I realized, oh my gosh, most of the time, at least at the beginning, all these companies, they didn't just want to say, hey, look, we get this. This is really hard. They want to say, hey, there's chaos going on right now. Okay. There's a lot of problems, but I want you to know that you can trust us because we've got the solution. And so they needed, while I was leaning way more into it's going to be okay. I was leaning into that where they needed, yes, some of that compassion, but also listen, look, it's going to be okay because we got your back and we're going to figure out how to handle this. Once I realized that, it totally changed my auditions. And it was a really good thing because during COVID, there were several different kind of waves that went through that we had to pay attention to. So it's so good to figure out booking patterns. If you're not booking all of a sudden, like maybe why? Maybe there's something that has changed advertising wise. And then also it can inform your read and even your second read. If the booking trend, I'm just going to throw this out. I'm not saying that this is necessarily something that's out there, but if a commercial trend was to be, more high pitched, okay, say that. So the booking trend is more high pitched and a lot of the commercials are going for that. Well, the second read, maybe you're not a high pitched person, maybe you're like, look, it's just not really me. So the first one you may try and take whatever you do well, okay, and maybe go a little high pitch. And then the second read, just do you and natural, but still with that kind of mindset in mind of why is it higher pitched? Is it more because we just want to keep up some energy and sound more upbeat and like everything's happy go lucky, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's the best analogy, but we'll get to more stuff, trust me. And then also it unlocks the how to our storytelling. It shows us, okay, this is the message that the brand is trying to communicate. Now, how do we share that message? The other thing that I wanted just to remind everyone is that, which is very hard sometimes in our industry, there's no thing of where you work for, 5 years, you get a promotion, you work up to a manager, and then 5 more years, you get promoted to something else and you're there and you've arrived. It is a constant openness towards innovation and change that helps us to be successful and to ride the waves so that we can have a sustainable career, which is what we all want. Now, I also believe that our industry is like planning too. So any type of seeds that you plant, whether it takes a long time to grow or whatever, that's never in vain. So there's a balance of like always trying to be innovative and grow and listen to what's changing, but then also knowing and trusting that the seeds that you plant will continue to sustain your career down the road. Okay, so this is where we're just going to kind of skip through this. I'm not going to go through some of the evolution, but there were definite changes during advertising with COVID. And one of the things that is really interesting, Bart Smith, some of you guys may have worked with him. He does a lot of radio advertising and is wonderful. He's been in this industry for a long time. And he was just saying, one of the things is 9/11 happened and people just were like, we don't know what to do. But with COVID, I don't know if they learned from 9/11 or what, but it was this automatic kind of action and then evolution in the advertising. Okay, what to expect in 2021? This is what we need to know. So first of all, this is a big part. If any of you guys pay attention to the different generations, we had the millennials and they're like, okay, this is the millennial type read. And if you're thinking, I don't know, what's the Gen Z read going to be? I don't even know if it's necessarily a specific read, but I will say that the messaging is going to really focus on sustainability because the majority of Gen Zers want to shop and buy from companies that think about sustainability and then also think about social issues. I wanted to, and this was a quote from Adweek too, that it tripled over the past 24 months. So it is a big deal and a huge wave. And here I wanted to play this spot. It's a great example from Airwick.
At Airwick, we craft authentic fragrances to bring the essence of nature into your home. But nature can't thrive without wildflowers. Since 2009, we've lost 33 million acres of grassland and wildflower habitat in the U.S. Great Plains. Airwick Scented Oils is partnering with World Wildlife Fund to reseed 1 billion square feet of native wildflowers and grasslands, making our connection to nature stronger. Learn more at airwick.us.
So even with something as simple as, air freshener, it is important to showcase that they care about sustainability and then they also care about our world and environment and giving back. Why we say that and why it's important as voice talent is because, one, it affects our tone. If you're talking about something sustainable and that's giving back, then there's got to be an element of care in your reads. So that's something that needs to be infused, even if it's something like a truck spot or something like John Deere or something like that. So something that you may not even necessarily think about that, add a level of care to your reads. And then another thing is we know how distracted we all are, right? And how people can just fast forward through commercials or not watch. And so everyone is trying to strive for ways to get attention. And one of the best ways that is not only attention grabbing, but also it lasts a lot longer in our memories is storytelling.
Grab your coat and get your hat. Leave your worries on the doorstep. Just direct your feet on the sunny side of the street.
Now, one of the things that I have been kind of on a quest for is when somebody says, we want a storyteller type read, what exactly does that mean? And one of the biggest things that it means for a storyteller type read is you've got to be so clear on the emotional impact of the story. Stories touch deeper than just something to tell us something that's going on. And so when we do those reads, when you're doing your script analysis, you've got to understand what emotional ties are they trying to bridge with this story they're telling and why. And then the next thing is, listen, we have gone through a year of being inside and not seeing our friends and family. And so all of the brands want to be able to provide a sense of escape and adventure, and experience is a big thing because we're all realizing, wow, we can do a lot from our own home. We don't necessarily have to go out to places or do things. And so brands want to remind people that experiences are valuable and that they can be really helpful.
We are a special breed, driven by something altogether different. Are we crazy? Maybe. Or maybe we believe in something others don't. That one day we will strike it pure, hit it farther, stick it closer than we ever have before. And when we do, every last second of work will have been worth it. Because we all know one thing: inside every golfer is a better one.
Okay, I feel like that was a decent example, but you will probably see even more, because I did this even before things were opening up as far as with COVID goes. You're already probably seeing it on air right now. And then if you're auditioning a lot, then you've already seen the auditions come through. People are talking about getting outside, enjoying people, the community. And then the other thing, which I'm so happy is returning to advertising, is the sense of humor and the fun, because we've had quite a year where it's been serious and heavy. And we've dealt with a lot of big things as a country and communities over the years. So this spot is actually voiced by one of our instructors, Aaron Goodson, who leads one of our beginner intensives. And I love this spot. So funny. And I love GoPuff too. If you haven't tried it, you've got to. It's amazing. You can get snacks to you in like 15 minutes. It's great.
15 minutes ago was fine. But now has a super slide. And lunch. Order all your stuff on GoPuff.
I'm telling you, it's amazing. I even had to get like a little present for my mentee, and the day was crazy. And I was like, I didn't have time to go to the grocery store. Ordered one on GoPuff, got a card and a little baggie and everything. It was great. I'm not getting a kickback from GoPuff, but okay. And then this final thing, and now this is more like talking about content, so we'll go into the tones in just a little bit, but diversity and inclusivity, which I'm so happy to see. And I hope that encourages all of us, because for a while, the quantity of auditions that were come through, it was for the standard American accent. And so we would even have to tell people here, our students, is like, we love your natural accent, but you'll get more quantity with the standard American accent. And now we are embracing who we are. And I'll tell you why that is in just a little bit.
There is no American dream. There are only American dreams. One single dream isn't big enough to hold the possibilities for us all. Because there's not just one type of family, or neighborhood, or ambition. But at the heart of just about every American dream is a home, and the desire to make it everything it needs to be. That's always been at the heart of Lowe's. And on our 100th birthday, we are committing to make that dream of a better home a little more within reach for everyone. So bring us your little fixes, your passion projects, your patios, your plans. We'll help you find it, DIY it, design it, and we can even install it too. We've never just been an improvement store. We're home to everything for your home. We're home to any budget. We're home to any possibility.
So I want to share real quick before we go on. I said I would share why part of this is. So with commercials, especially national commercials, before, the person that was speaking, the voiceover that was speaking, is representative of the brand. It's the brand voice. Nowadays, though, instead of that, it is representative of the people that are buying it. So it's a peer-to-peer representation versus a brand-to-peer representation. And so that's why you're going to see so much of this of like, we just want real people. We just want Terrell. We just want Matthew. We just want C. Suzette. That's what we want, is we want those people speaking, because they are going to speak to their peers, like, and talk about Lowe's and like, oh my gosh, yep, just did this project. It was great. And it helped me create, this blank wall over here that I didn't know what I was going to do into this magic space. And it's my home, and it reflects me and what I like. So let's talk about tones. What we're going to do is we're going to focus on some of the big tones and then how we can achieve them as voice talent. And then I'll briefly go over some of the genres and some of the things that you're going to see in the individual genres. And then we can open it up for questions at the end. So Carly and Tina also, I spoke with both of them and they were so helpful. And they were saying, this is crazy. I knew that it was a lot. 90% of the commercials. Now, most of the commercials they cast, again, this is national spots. So the regional, the local are going to be a little different, but the national spots, they said 90% of the ones that they cast are asking for that natural, real tone. What does that mean to you as voice talent? It means we have got to be so clear on what our natural sound is and that we can get there like that. And it is hard. I've got a couple of like little techniques that can help you though. But first, let's listen to this. So this is interesting. And now this is a little different because it's a food spot. You know, most of the time with DQ, it's always been like up and peppy. But before you had, like the new spring tree collection from DQ. It was just really intense. And now listen to it.
Make your move with the new DQ Spring Tree Collection. With choco chip filled shakes like cool and craveable mint chip, the creamy dreamsicle dipped cone, or the bold and bright tropical lemonade twisty misty slush. Stop by for the new Spring Tree Collection today at DQ. Happy tastes good.
It was still, it still had this energy to it, but it was just definitely more natural and real. Okay, so this is such a great example. And Tina and Carly from Sound and Fear, I cannot take credit for this example because they were the ones that told me this. But they said, so here's kind of a good picture of the evolution of voiceover. First of all, voiceover used to be where, imagine you had you were throwing a party at your house, right? So you had guests standing around and you have appetizers and you're taking the appetizers around on a tray and you're like, Terry, oh my gosh, you have to try these shrimp wrapped bacon appetizers. Oh my gosh, they're going to be amazing. You're just going to love me forever after you taste these. Okay. So that was, first of all, how voiceover started. Very salesy, very like, hey, you're going to love this DQ. Then it started getting a little more conversational. So then it's more like you're taking it out and you're like, Kathleen, oh my gosh, you have to try these shrimp and bacon wrapped appetizers. I love them. Personally, they're my favorite. And I think you're really going to like them too. And now it's changed into, you take that tray of shrimp bacon wrapped appetizers that you did, and you are an amazing chef. And you just walk into the room, set it down on the table, and walk out. Because you are so confident that those are the best appetizers in the history of the world that people are going to see them and they're going to want to go over there and try them. So you're not even going to try and sell them. I thought that is such a great visual analogy to remember that. So one of the biggest things that has changed, even in my own personal reads, is being so clear on what I think about the script and every single word and being so confident in it. So sometimes I even imagine myself, or I may even stand up and do it, walking in my booth, knowing I did the work of what I'm saying and why I'm saying it, placing it down, and then just communicating it. That's it. It seems so simple, doesn't it? Oh my, how it is not as simple as that. Okay, and then the next thing is spoken word or slam poetry. You may see this, you may already have seen this a lot come through with auditions. It's there. So me being like the 40-year-old white girl, I'm like, are there slam poetry classes that I can take maybe to learn how to do this? There's not. At least not in Atlanta that I've seen. So if anyone knows of any, please share. But what I've found as I've been just researching more is it is so much about the rhythm and the passion, and then also taking your audience on a journey through moods, through emotions. A lot of times it is really storytelling. Now, to be honest with you, I feel like my slam poetry spoken word auditions have gotten better. But also, my voice is just not the kind of voice that you want to hear on on these type of spots. So I don't even know if it will actually help me book anything, but I will say that I feel like I am more connected now. It's so easy to just listen and try and imitate stuff. And that is not what is going to book you, because anybody can imitate, right? You have to bring to the table something unique and different. Instead of imitating, you have to bring your own perspective. So, let me play it. Here we go.
2020, that's it. Calling anyone with grit. Change this, change that, but don't ever quit. 2020's done. A new era has begun, so keep pushing forward, because this is 2021. The future is still ours to win. Make a different future. Start different at GoDaddy.com.
I will say another thing that I do if I do get a slam poetry or spoken word audition is if they don't give me the music, then I do try and find some type of music that will help me kind of find a rhythm. Again, I kind of need help to spark some stuff. So it may be good to even be able to bookmark something like this, one of these type spots, to kind of give you the feel for it. I'm so happy about this next one. We are embracing accents. We are embracing unique vocal qualities. In fact, if you have, more than likely, if no one has told you that you should do voiceover, now is the time for you probably to do voiceover, because that means that you're probably really unique and you're going to stand out. Why do advertising agencies want you to do this? One, listen, they just want their spots to stick out. We are in a very distracted world and they want it to stick out. They want it to be relatable and real. And that's part of it. Our country, right, is a melting pot. At least it should represent that. Personally, I grew up in the South and I would rarely get Southern auditions. And now over the past year or so, I've gotten so many more, which is really cool. So let's listen to this.
With the intelligent control of all-wheel drive and the power of a 2.5-liter turbo engine, there's no limit to the places the all-new Sorento can take you, and to the stories waiting for you when you get there. The all-new Sorento, the world's first storytelling machine.
And I actually auditioned for this, but they were looking for a Southern accent for a Kia dealership. So this is another thing that I'm seeing is before, probably even two and a half years ago or so, I know at least the coaches that I worked with, they're like, okay, less, pull it back. To where it was almost like, we talk about proximity a lot at Atlanta Voiceover Studio. And so we talk about imagine that person's ears right against your mouth. And this is how you're talking to them. And proximity is going to determine volume, enunciation, all kinds of things, but it's just an easy way to remember that. So if I'm talking to Roberta, like this, then it's going to be a lot quieter. It's going to be more pulled back. But if I'm talking to Roberta on the other side of the room, it's going to be a little different. What I've seen in a lot of the spots is it is less necessarily not always, not 100%, but less like right against the ear and more like what I call kitchen table proximity. So instead, it is like I'm talking to Anita on the other side of the kitchen table and we're having the conversation. And again, it's going to be still relaxed. It's going to be conversational, but it's not going to be necessarily almost so soft and pulled back. So let's take a look at this if we can.
The new Samsung Galaxy S21.
This looks different.
It is.
Show me.
Just hit record. See that? You're filming in 8K. That's cinema quality.
So
you can pull photos straight from video.
Impressive. But will it last the whole trip?
You'll have battery all day. And then more.
This is different.
Told you.
Okay, did you hear the guy VO there? It wasn't like the normal VOs that we've even heard a few years ago. So it was still relaxed, but it wasn't so see, you know what I mean? It wasn't like right up against somebody's ear. Okay, so just to recap. Some of the top trends are the natural real read, the spoken word slam poetry, accents, unique vocal qualities and tendencies. Don't try and fake one, but if you do something in your voice that's like interesting, a hiccup, or, sometimes maybe it's you're more in the back of your throat, realize that that is a valuable thing in this day and age. And then the kitchen table proximity. I want to say real quick, because the natural real read is one of the toughest things. And it's so weird because it's like we talk every day like ourselves, right? We're used to it. Then why is it so hard when we get onto a microphone? And we had one of our students in a class, I think I was just visiting in there, and he said, Heidi, he was like, if all they want is an authentic real read, why do we even need to train? And I said, that's a really good question. But I said, what is one of the hardest things for all of us to do? To be authentic and to be vulnerable and to discover your voice. Because a lot of times other people are going to know exactly what your voice is like, but us, it's harder. It needs to be revealed more. And so a few ways to be able to try and reveal your voice is think about when you're just having a conversation with somebody, a friend. Imagine if Grace and I are talking and we're just friends, and think about your posture. Think about your body language. Just do this tonight if you're hanging out with people or friends or family members, and think about even like the tone of your voice. Are you more relaxed? Are you more animated? And then another thing that you can do is just when you're having conversation, if you're at the dinner table and you're just having conversation, record yourself on your phone. Press the voice memo, hit record, and just record yourself throughout the entire conversation to where you forget that it's there. And listen back to that versus what you end up sending in as auditions and see how it's different. A lot of times I just do a ton of improv before I do a natural real read. And so I'll almost imagine that I am talking to a friend, but I do a ton of improv. Like I talk about what I had for breakfast, if I had breakfast, what I did at boot camp, if there was anything that I listened to in that morning. And I just improv until I'm so comfortable with how I'm saying things, the way I'm saying it, and my posture and everything. And then I go into my audition read. Okay, let's talk about some specific genres really quick. I may not play all of these, so I'm just going to touch on it because I want plenty of time for questions. So first of all, the car and automotive genre. You're still maybe going to have that raw, real reads, especially for the male VO reads, but we're also going to see a lot of just organic, inspirational reads, especially due to car companies focusing on the environment, and they're wanting to push that message out. And so remember, even how we talked about the Airwick spot and how we had to have that element of care. And so if you're talking about something that you're helping the environment, there's going to be an element of care underneath your reads, even if they don't necessarily ask for that in the breakdown. I do a lot of AutoNation spots, and Zimmerman is the advertising agency that does it. And so I asked Juan, who's one of the guys there, if he could just share with me a little bit about how things have changed even in the automotive. And you've probably seen this as well, but it really went from like aggressive to the warm and conversational. And we're starting to see that even in some of the regional spots. The AutoNation spots that I do are more regional. So even with those, when I started, now it's been a couple years, and I started and they really wanted me to like go even harder, Now it's like they've toned it down just over those 2 years. Okay, travel. There's going to be two main things. One is the storyteller. Of course, you want to paint the picture for people so that they want to go. And then you want to inspire them to get out of their house. Look, we've had a crazy year. Now's the time for adventure and escape, and pull out your laptop and make that reservation and get out of here and experience the world. And then retail. This is going to be interesting. So you know how influencers are so big on social media. So I want you to almost think influencer when you do like a retail spot, because it's got to be something, it's going to be more. And we're already seeing this, but it's like They want just somebody. Now, listen, I'm not saying start everything with, hey guys, I'm not saying that, but I want you to think like you are just talking to a friend and you're trying to influence them to shop at Kohl's or, whatever. That's what people are looking for retail. And then healthcare, there's just going to be more of focus on the innovation, inclusive care, things that are more, if you're speaking, like we just talked about, less like that you're the voice of the brand and more like you're the representative of the person that they're targeting, like peer to peer. I want you to think about accessibility, because that's going to be a big thing, especially with all the ways that we've had like virtual. I mean, I don't know if you guys, but I mean, I had several virtual doctor appointments and it actually worked out great. And then with my counselor, I'm like, I don't ever want to go back to your office again. This is wonderful. And so we're going to hear a lot about accessibility. Food and beverage. Y'all, it is time to break it out. It is time to get together with friends and family, our community, and what better way than with Seagrams or Seagrams or whatever it is that they're promoting. And then here's just another example. Health and beauty. Again, this is going to be very similar to almost retail. Think about like you're talking to a friend, like you are sharing on social media. If you do share on social media, something that you found that you just really loved. That's what you need to aim for. And then financial. This has just seen, I think, just a slight change. And again, it goes back to less like the voice of the brand, more like the voice of the peer, but it still needs to have that trust, right? It needs to sound like you're the type of peer that someone can trust, that they know that takes care of their money, that thinks about the future, that's responsible, that's wise, but that also is innovative and has found a way that they can do everything from their phone. And it makes it so much easier. And then education. Personally, I think education is going to be really tricky over the next few years. I mean, that's my own guess. I don't totally know, but why spend a ton of money on college when you can do it from home? I know there's some people that just don't like virtual learning, but there's also other people that have found that it makes it really convenient, really easy. And so for colleges to be able to get that attendance up, if they don't have a well-established long distance learning program, they're going to have to focus on the experience. What is bringing people to the college that they can't get from a virtual experience? I put this because I think this is something that we also need to know. Now, these are trends, again, national spots. But also remember that this is not necessarily 100% tried and true of every single brand in that particular genre either. That's why it's so important to continue to listen and watch commercials. And then also it's so important to see if the brand has had any other campaigns, which brings me to how we can continue to do this. iSpot, if you are not already on it, it's just amazing. And you can quickly do it even in the morning before you start and just kind of browse even the top commercials that have been out and listen to the tones, listen to the brand, see if there's anything that one particular brand is doing. If it's a campaign, you can really get good insight there. And then Adweek, I subscribe to Adweek. I think it's like $5 a month or something. And it's great because you get in your inbox, you get articles and updates on brands and campaigns. And it's something that I don't spend a ton of time. I just kind of look over the headlines, see if there's anything there. Or then I will also go if I get an audition for a brand and I want to see if they have any new campaign out or anything like that, then a lot of times I can find it on Adweek. And then also follow some of the brands that you love on social media. Social media, of course, is like a whole other platform to be able to advertise. And we get those auditions for social media type advertisements. And so it's important to keep up with the brands on social too, to see kind of what they're doing on their Insta stories, on TikTok, and everything. And that's something that it's easy to do. Just pick your top favorite brands that you would love to be able to work for, or that you feel like your voice may fit well, and follow them. Okay, I want to open this up for questions. So feel free to raise your hand if you do have a question. And then I also wanted just to let you guys know whether you know about Atlanta Voiceover Studio or not. I know that you had to sign up for the email newsletter to be able to get the link here, but our email newsletter, I really strive to make it like really good content that is so helpful for your career. I do a little bit of like applicable, like real life stuff, and then also some mental stuff, which you guys know is hard, right? In this industry. Also, the email newsletter, we have this thing once a month called the Virtual Industry Pro Night. It is $35. So really affordable. We only do, I think 15 people can sign up for it. But we have a producer, a casting director, an agent come in. You get to do 2 reads generally, unless they're a little long-winded, but you get to do some reads, have a Q&A time. And because it's small, you get to kind of forge relationships with these people that you may not be able to. We started it during COVID and it's just been great, but you can only sign up through the email newsletter. And then we also have some monthly workouts on the 3rd Tuesday of every month. And there's only, before it was 12 people, now we're actually taking it down to 8. So it can feel like a community. And I'll go over a couple other things that we have upcoming, but let's get to some questions. Danielle.
I have completed a voiceover class and I have 2 demos completed as well. And hopefully this won't sound too difficult. Where do I start? I just don't know what to do. I know I need more training because I can always use more education, but what's the next step?
Danielle, that's a great question. I know one thing that we work on a lot here at Atlanta Voiceover Studio. Listen, let's not end a class or a workshop without people knowing what is the next step, because that is so important. And listen, everybody's journey is different. So your next step may look different than Melissa's, but still needs some type of direction. What I would say, first of all, if you have the demos and you have training, first of all, I would say submit to agents. Danielle, you are in a great position of, I can hear it in your voice, and I don't know what your demo sounds like, but you're just a demographic that agents want right now. And so I would submit to agents, as many agents you can in different regions, and then get on with pay-to-play sites, or at least one pay-to-play site. And the pay-to-play site, everybody has different opinions about it, but one of the biggest things that you've got to focus on is, especially if you've done training already, is the application of that training. Because we have like a 3-month intensive, which is great. And it sounds like that's a lot of training, which it is, but you're going to have to, this is going to have to become second nature to you, to where you can get in, do that audition, don't have to think through all the whole checklist. And the way to do that is the application and practice over and over and over, what they say, like thousands of hours or whatever. And so sometimes getting on the pay-to-play site, even if it's a free site, and just auditioning for as many things as you're able to, just with the focus of practicing auditioning. Do you have a home studio set up? You don't. Okay. So actually, I take that back. Before you submit to agents, get that home studio set up, because you have to have a good home studio set up. These days, we have 2 classes, Adobe Audition and Audacity, that's virtual. It starts every month. It goes over everything. So you're not just learning about Audacity or Adobe Audition. Tina, I saw your hand up next.
I loved this. This is awesome.
Oh.
Let's just say you get a copy of a script and you're getting ready to audition, or you want to audition with this script, but you just either can't connect with it, or you're not even sure if you agree with what they're talking about. What do you do?
That is hard, Tina. I'll just tell you specifically what I do. Number one, I first look for if there's anything that I could connect with potentially, even if I don't quite get it. I'm not like a bourbon or a whiskey drinker, but I've auditioned for those things. And I think through my husband, I think through other friends of mine that do love it, to where I can connect with them. There's also times where I just don't do auditions. Mm-hmm. And I will say that was not always the case. I have always thought every single thing that we get is a great opportunity. And it is. And it's a great opportunity to learn and practice. So even if it's out of my comfort zone, or I think I would never book this, because also I know probably a lot of you voice talent, I've thought that before and I booked something that I thought there's no way I'm booking this, but I'm realizing that there's freedom in at least my experience in getting to this point where I'm like, okay, I don't have to do everything,
That's true.
So so I would say that's a double thing. Look and see if there's anything that you can connect with. And if you just are really not feeling it, and if you feel like even if it's not necessarily the uncomfort of it, because if it's just uncomfortable, that may be something to push through, even just for the fact of practicing pushing through something that's uncomfortable. At least that's my philosophy about life. But if it's more than that, then also don't worry. Look, here at Atlanta Voiceover Studio, and Mike and I, we always talk about like having an abundance mentality. There's plenty to go around.
Right. I'm older. Actually, I'm 70. So when I get an audition.
You look great for 70, Tina.
When I get an audition from my agent that says 28 to 38 years old, I think, well, I don't sound 38 years old.
Yeah.
And I mean, most of the time I skip it unless it's something I think I can really do. I just don't know how to handle that.
Yeah, I get that, Tina. And honestly, from an agent's perspective, there are times that they just send it out and they're not able to really go through. So I would say that is totally fine to say no to that. And then there are also other times where, and you may not know, but that the client says, this is what we would prefer, but we would kind of like to hear some outliers too, just in case. So that's also part of it. But if you're just feeling like, then you can say, just say no, it's fine. Okay, Juliet.
Hi, Heidi. Thank you so much. I'm so pumped. This webinar just sort of reminded me like that VO and practicing VO sparks joy and makes all the endorphins run. So thank you for that. I think I have one rapid fire question and then one other question, which you can defer if you don't want to do it. But have you noticed any differing trends for web or internet commercials versus traditional media, or are they like within genre?
They are within genre, very similar. But what I will say is that even those lean even more toward the natural, real, like it depending on the genre, of course, but really lean in towards that, because with advertising now, people are really able to target people in certain cities and that like certain things. And so they're going to want, if they're marketing something to your demographic, Juliet, then they're going to want somebody that sounds like your it's just going to be so almost like focused in. So even more so, I think for web and especially with social media, but even web, Hulu, like some of those ads are targeted. If you think about Pandora and Spotify, a lot of those ads are targeted towards people in certain areas and their likes. And
that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Heidi. This has been so valuable and wonderful.
You're welcome.
Is there any one or two particular of the trends, the focus that you talked about, that you think will have staying power into 2022 that you might want to add an additional spot? And as a follow-up to that, do you provide that kind of a service where you will evaluate a current demo and say, this is what I think you need, and then, of course, be able to produce a spot so it fits seamlessly into what we already have?
Great questions. So first of all, yes, the natural real read. If you do not have that, if you are able to do that, now listen, not everyone is. If you are not comfortable with that, I would say keep training and work towards that. We have 2 great classes that can help, but if you can do the natural real read, you need to have that on your demo, especially if you're submitting to agents. If you are submitting to agents, and I would put that first on your demo, make sure it is dang good and put that very first on your demo. Because agents are they're not going to take you if you can't do a natural real read. They've already got plenty of announcers probably at this point. They want to hear what Jean brings to the table. Like you've got to bring you in that first read. So I would highly recommend that. And then I would say also, if there's another aspect of your personality that sticks out, to do a spot like that. For instance, if you do have a quirkiness to you, oh my gosh, bring that out. Have a spot that focuses on your quirkiness. Like I even said before, if there's some vocal, just like uniqueness to your voice, if there's anything like that. Lori, you even have there's a vocal uniqueness to your voice too, but if there's something like that, I would highly recommend doing a spot. If you are funny, if you've got a good sense of humor, if you have a background in improv or comedy, put a spot on there like that. Those are really asked for. And then again, the slam poetry, I would say, I don't think those things are going to go away in the next couple of years, to be honest with you. Slam poetry may be one of those ones you're going to see less and less of. Anything that you can do that would be, look, voiceover is competitive. And now, like, of course, I know at least all my on-camera actors are like, yeah, I really need to get into voiceover, after this pandemic. And I'm like, yeah. Tell me about it. Right. So everyone wants to get into it. And so we've got to figure out what is your unique thing that you can bring to the table vocally. Those are 3 things that I would say that matters even more than like range, especially if you're submitting to New York or LA agents. If you're submitting to some of the smaller ones, they're still going to want you to have that nice range, but New York and LA, not as big of a deal. Okay, Micah, what's your question? Thanks for waiting patiently.
Thank you for this presentation. This has been wonderful.
Sure.
I actually have a question more about the production side. Like you, I've been in radio for years and kind of fell into voiceover that way. With a lot of different coaching classes these days, I'm hearing people, and I have strong opinions about this, but I'd really like to hear your opinion on it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of voice coaches out there that are really touting the noise profile reduction, things like that, and using these kind of plugins and software to help reduce your in-studio levels to be as quote unquote professional as possible. I strongly disagree with this, but that's just me. I'm old school analog. You got to have your source as good as possible because you don't have these kind of plugins. What are your takes on that?
Yeah, Micah, I completely agree with you. And the most important thing is your environment. So if your environment is good and it has a low noise floor, that way you don't have to put those things on. That's what we would suggest. So, and also to be honest with you, I mean, this is just my perspective too, as a voice talent, but I do a lot of auditions and then I'm doing booked sessions and then we have the studio. I want to do less to get my audition out the door. And not only that, but my auditions out the door and then booked sessions when I'm editing and sending them to clients. I want to do the least amount possible because it's time, I just don't have a ton of time. And so that would be my thing too. It's like this.
Yeah. And also if you use plugins and all these tricks and stuff, are you going to remember the chain when you actually have to what if the client hires you again and you forget how you built that voice?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So true, Micah. I think that the moral to this story in voiceover right now is natural and authentic is always better, right? The least amount of put on things we have to do better. Thanks, Micah, for that question. Thanks for your insight too on that.
Hey, I actually have 2 questions. One I think is very short. Do you still think that there is a millennial read in this market? And is it worth it still having that on my demo? Or is it something I should think about taking off?
I think that it is, but in this aspect. So the millennial read is still out there and we still get requests for it, but it lends itself more to that analogy that we talked about with the tray of appetizers, where it's, and because you've gone through our class, that the mindset behind the millennial read is take it or leave it. This is what it is. But it's not so much as an attitude, but it's like, I'm laying it here on the table. And if you want it, great. If you don't, okay.
Gotcha.
So I think it's very important to still have, but just lean less into the attitude part of the millennial. And then even, for a while we had little vocal fry, like people liked vocal fry. And now more and more you're saying like, please no vocal fry, it's not an apathetic thing. You still care. It's this casual confidence.
Got it. Okay. And my other question, everyone has felt is the transition to the home studio and then being so important. What are the client's expectations of that home studio? Because it is at your home and like I have dogs. I can't control every single thing. And soundproofing your booth is very expensive and costly. But you also don't want to come across as unprofessional. So what is the balance there, and what are their expectations?
Yeah, I will say that from all the engineers that I've talked to, and even the sessions that I've done, I mean, most of the time I don't usually ever have any trouble. I only had one trouble with like power going out, is that all the engineers out there understand what this industry is right now, and that you're doing it from your home, and that you're not an engineer. So I know even we're good friends with Gopal, who runs Acoustech here in Atlanta. And he will always just say, listen, we know you have lawn people that only will come when you're actually doing a booked session. We know that. And so if you think of it more even like a collaboration, and that the engineering isn't on your shoulders, I think that helps a little bit to take some of the pressure off of you. At least that's what I've had to do, because that's where I get stressed out mostly, is the engineering stuff. If something goes wrong or something, but I think, okay, wait, this is still a collaboration, we're all in this together. And the reality is that technology fails us. It is not like 100% gonna work every single time. And so I think that the best thing you can do is, if there is an engineer on the other side, if you can just say, hey, listen, I want to make sure that it's the best possible. So please give me any feedback if you want. I'll try and give you the cleanest, best audio possible from my side.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I just wanted to give you guys some heads up on a couple of things that we do have coming up. Adam Schneider does radio imaging now. It's not a class, it's one-on-one. So it's private coaching, but you do a first consultation. And then if you want to continue with him, then you can he's got like 6 different kind of lessons that are an hour long. Sign up for it on your own time. So even if you're like, I can only do it once a month, that's fine. So if that's something that you're interested in, then I would highly recommend it. And then we're having audiobook class with Kurt Bonham, which is going to be so fun. And then we've got something really exciting, because we're doing a whole weekend kind of for audiobook demos with Erin Spencer, who's coming in from LA. She owns her own audiobook production company. She's also a narrator, and she's an author of a book. She's done a ton of stuff. So you can actually get 2 demos done within that weekend. It's going to be amazing. And she'll give you her business tips, and her business tips are amazing. She makes so much money from audiobooks, and the way that she has it all set up is so smart. She has twins too, by the way, and she still finds a way to do on-camera stuff and run her business and everything. And then also our Adobe and Audacity classes, and that'll be 6 weeks long. Character of You with Steve Henderson. Chloe does a virtual workout, and so that is great. But it's even more than just going through scripts. You're able to talk about things at the end, and Chloe is amazing. So pretty much all of our classes you can join virtually or in person. So if you're in the Atlanta area.